Everybody. So I was recently reminded of a story about how elephants are trained to stay within the confines of a leash. You see these big elephants, these, ton-plus elephants. Certainly they have the weight and mass and the strength to break through the little rope that they're tied to. So the way the story goes is that as children or as infants, they're trained to stay within the confinements of a small rope, or that they tie around the leg or what have you. And so the infant, not having the strength of an adult elephant, tries to break free from the rope and eventually gives in because it can't. And so it accepts the limitation, and it is therefore conditioned to believe that it cannot break free. And so as an adult elephant, it never challenges that belief. And so it remains limited. And so whether or not that's true about how they train elephants doesn't really matter, but I believe that it serves as a great metaphor and analogy to our experience, believing we are limited to the body, limited to the rules and conditioning that the world has placed on us. My name is Craig Villarubia, and I want to answer a question that has recently come in to me regarding A Course in Miracles, Enlightenment or Bust. It's a documentary I made where in the story I quit or left my career behind to follow inspiration, and that was 2 years ago, December 2014, and here I am celebrating the 2-year anniversary of leaving my career behind. And so the question is, can you reflect on the last 2 years? And can you speak a little bit about money and the concerns that come up with leaving a career and still being able to maintain a cash flow, if you will? And then lastly, with a regular job, if you have a regular job, how do you keep principles of A Course in Miracles very much alive, and how do they go together? So I'm happy to reflect on my last 2 years leaving a career. Certainly, it was a big step for me because I had a huge investment in career. I was invested in the timeline. Now, the word career, Latin root is carus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Carrus, which means race course. In fact, the very first use of the word career in English meant racetrack. So in many ways, when we talk about a career, we're talking about being on a trajectory, being on a timeline. In fact, at work, it would often be referred to my performance or my place in my development was often referred to as the fast track. I was on a fast track, an executive fast track with the company, and that sounds really exciting. I mean, who doesn't want to be on the fast track? That means I'm on the fast track for status growth. I'm on the fast track to financial growth. So these are all the things of the world that we're trained. It is basically the rope, if you will, in the analogy of the elephant and being limited to. And there's certainly nothing wrong with the fast track, nothing wrong with the career, but it does not have a finish line. And if I'm seeking my identity in my career, in other words, if I'm seeking the end or the finish line in this race, I will be forever on a treadmill or a search to happiness. I will never find happiness until I recognize where happiness lies. And in my experience, it lies in following inspiration and following your heart. And this is the central teaching of A Course in Miracles. When the Course talks about following the guidance of the Holy Spirit, it's following the guidance of our heart. So I left my job 2 years ago. And if you saw the movie A Course in Miracles, Enlightenment or Bust, you got an idea or a sense of some of my challenges of leaving and moving. It also included a move to Hawaii. And as I look back with complete gratitude. The last 2 years I could have never even predicted the experience I would have had. It has been 2 years filled with mind training, community, going deeper with these principles that A Course in Miracles puts forth. It has been an opportunity to be in silence. I finished my movie while I was in Hawaii and got to travel with my movie. So it's been a beautiful 2 years. That's not to say that there hasn't been things in the mind that have come up for correction. There have been things that have come up in the mind for correction, which is another way of saying fears have come up. And so they too are subject to the tools that are taught to us in A Course in Miracles. And so that's what we do. We accept the atonement or the correction for ourselves. So when the fears come up, it's about creating an awareness that the fear is there, that the cause of the fear is in mind, and a willingness to give it over to the Holy Spirit to be shown a different perception or be given a different perception and experience. And that's where the miracles lie. With regards to money, because I know that's often, certainly my first question when leaving the job is like, oh my God, where's money going to come from? And that is certainly some of the fears that have come up. And I think what I've learned, and I think all of us know this to some degree, but we have to have an experience of it to really see it, recognize the miracles. In the last 2 years, I've recognized that money, the symbol of money, doesn't just come, or abundance as it's expressed in the symbol of money, doesn't just come from a job. In the 2 years, I've had multiple people actually donate money, give me money to say, here's $500. I want to support what you're doing. I've had the experience where I remember once going to a furniture store with a friend, and out of nowhere, she's like, I'm paying for it. I'm buying the sofa. We had to buy a sofa for one of the rooms here. And boom, a free sofa that was unexpected and unplanned for. And incidentally, there were other people within the community here that also had the experience of money being given. We had a car donated to the house. We even turned down a car that was being donated to us only because we couldn't take on the responsibility of maintaining another car. We had a lot of projects going on, and so money and abundance is continually coming into our experience and has come to our experience. The other thing that has happened when we moved to Hawaii, we knew or had some idea that there were some koa trees on the property. And for those of you who may not know what koa trees are, they are an exotic wood, very valuable. In fact, the land that we live on has actually been harvested. All the koa trees have been harvested and taken away and sold for their value. And so, but we knew this was once a koa forest. And so, since being here, we've actually started a reforestation project where we're bringing back the koa tree. And guess what? The Department of Agriculture is actually doing a cost share. So we're being paid to bring back the koa tree, which we certainly didn't know about before I left my career and moved out here. And this is something that's come our way. The other piece is part of the reforestation project is we have to take down some of the older growth koa trees. And guess what? We get to mill these koa trees and sell the wood. So there is a stream of income that's coming in from the koa tree that we did not, we didn't know about. We certainly didn't have the details in place to understand how this would unfold. And certainly here we are, and it is unfolding. So that's just another example or miracle of how abundance can manifest in our experience without a traditional career. Now, I to my surprise, after being here a year and a half, I've actually gone back to work. I've taken a job recently in Kona, which is about an hour and a half away from the ranch. And the thought is like, well, he left his career. Why is he going back to a job? Actually, after being on the ranch for a year and a half, being on a rural area, spending a lot of time here in silence, in community, deep mind training, and so forth, I felt to be in a collaborative environment. And I actually got a small apartment in Kona. It also has created another stream of money that's coming in that I'm using for some other projects that I'm working on. So stay tuned. There's some fun stuff coming. And I'm having a ball with it. I have new relationships that have been formed. I'm approaching this situation unlike I've ever experienced before. In other words, because of the practice, these spiritual principles in A Course in Miracles, and because of the mind training, the scope of awareness has widened, and now I'm in a job environment, and I'm seeing the job differently. There's a new perception and perspective that I have on the job. I'm also becoming aware of things in the mind that I was blinded to when I had a career. So I don't see myself with a career. Like I'm not in a job because I'm seeking an identity. I'm not on a trajectory. I'm not looking for a promotion. I'm not looking for a status change. That's not what this is about. And so I feel like coming into the job, I'm coming into it with a completely different outlook and experience. If I was to lose my job tomorrow, I am totally fine with it. It isn't something that I need to hold on to, in the sense that I recognize the unalterable in me, knowing that no matter what happens, I will always be okay. And that's really what we want to come into the awareness of. When we talk about leaving a job or career or following our inspiration and worrying about, whether or not the bills are going to get paid, what we're really talking about is whether or not we're going to be okay. We've accepted already that we are vulnerable. And so our worry is, are we going to survive? And it's not a step in trust, or it's not a practice of trust in the sense that we're trusting that the bills are going to get paid, but rather we are trusting that who and what we are remains the same regardless of whether or not the bills get paid. We want to recognize the okayness, the unalteredness in us. That is our identity, not the body, not the limitation. The body's limited. The body will die. The body is subject or at the effect of the world. But we are not the body, and that's really the aim of our awakening, is to come into the awareness of our identity as spirit. And we do that by following inspiration in spirit, by staying in spirit, regardless of what the conditioning says. So we test the conditioning, we take risks, we take these leaps of faith. Unlike the elephant, we are willing to break the chain. We're willing to step forth and accept the reality. As A Course in Miracles, Lesson 50 says, I am sustained by the love of God. We accept that wholeheartedly, and we take those steps knowing that wherever the chips may fall, we are okay. And we need to take those steps in order to come into the recognition and become aware of the okayness or the unalterable us that we are. In order to come into the unalterable us that we are, we have to take the steps. So we become witness to grace and to the flow of life, and recognize that all of our decisions, everything that we do, is all working for good. Course in Miracles says all things work for good. Only in the ego's judgment could that be different, which is basically saying that you can't make a mistake. So if you're following inspiration, you are right where you're supposed to be, and the entire universe is conspiring with you. There is no separate identity making a decision by itself. When decisions are made, it is the universe, the cosmos in unison making that decision with us. So we are supported by everything. And in trusting and taking those steps, we become witness to, the poetry, to the donations, to the support, all of the support that the universe has to offer.